All right. I am going to address this the DPS, the problematic DPS, the Sombra. I understand that for a lot of people, she's a very frustrating hero to play against. That's the problem with sort of like stealth heroes. Uh, but I also understand, like, to her identity, she is sort of that obnoxious hero. Um, and I think that it's difficult to play with uh, stealth and make it fun, but also make it feel fair. And I think what we have currently is obviously not good. Everyone doesn't like the changes. Like it was she was powerful but more fun before after she couldn't just like place her translocator down and TP back to safety instantly. There's something about being able to instantly TP away to safety that is a problem. Hint hint. But having her translocator be something she's tied to, so she has to like throw it in order to like, get away, I think is a good thing. Her EMP being a powerful ultimate that locks you out of your abilities, I actually don't have a problem with because of the fact that it is an ultimate, and if it can cancel out other certain ultimates, especially if they're like, electronic based or whatever, I think that feels fair. Like when I get EMP'd, I'm not like, oh man, like that's I feel like we lose that fight. It's like, we got EMP, like I gotta play safe for a couple of seconds. Or, if Sombra EMPs and cancel out a Sig ult or something, I'm like, okay, she was planning for that. Um, what I do think is unfair is how Hack could cancel cancel you out of your ultimates or cancel certain ultimates. Like, before in the past it would lock Bob out, just by hacking him. You could cancel Sig ult by hacking him. And the problem is that for Sombra with perma invis, she could stay hidden if she knew Sig was going to ult. Stay hidden, wait for him to ult, and then just right click him without needing to aim, no margin of error. And this is where I get into like when abilities have no margin for error, but they're also strong, that feels unfair. So it's not fun when you're playing like Sig and you have all of these responsibilities as tank, and some Sombra player is just invis waiting for you to ult because she knows that you have it and just hack you out of it. And now she has her ult and she could like counter or something. You know what I mean? Like it just doesn't feel fair. So um, there's different solutions I have for that. And here I have the abilities laid out. I'm not going to address like her weapon or like, her passive, not the DPS passive, but the other one. I don't like passive. So we're going to focus mostly on the core part of her kit. Um, EMP, I think this one is A-okay. I think that we are, um, I think that this one is fine. I don't really want to address it. I don't think it needs to be touched. Not everything on her kit is bad, and I don't want to take away the parts of her kit that are working because of the fact that like she's gone through so many iterations. I think it's important to, you know, uh, learn from your mistakes. And just because you don't like her right now doesn't mean that everything about her kit is broken. Her translocator, the way it works now, I think that's a lot better. I think it's actually very good that she has to take a risk, but also even if she throws it and throws it to like a high ground location, she can be dove on by Winston. You still at least knew the location of which she was going. There was a limited range there. There's limitations to this ability, but there's also strengths to it, and there's also ways to play around it. Where if you are using it, you kind of want to know, you really want to play Sombra a lot of times on high maps that have high ground, so that way you could fight on low ground and then throw your translocator up, which would be the safest. Um, but the virus and the hack, I would change. The virus, uh, it's not a terrible ability, but I think like getting bursted doesn't feel great. Like it's old Sombra, the way she worked is, and the way she still kind of works is, if you land the virus, someone's gonna die and gonna get bursted pretty much instantaneously, right? So I would change the virus to something else. I would say that instead of the virus, her stealth should be some sort of resource. I know not everyone is down with that idea, but hear me out. Here's what I kind of have cooking in my brain. Um, the stealth, you don't want to tie your stealth to your disengage tool. Like I don't know what they were thinking doing that. Like that's a really weird decision to make. So I think that it should be a resource. And now whether there's two ways that this stealth could work. One, it runs out by movement. So you have a certain amount, and while you're invisible, and you start to move, you that meter starts to decrease, right? So that way, the more you try to like move and chase around while invis, the more you're gonna, limit how much you can do that. And that's a limited amount. The second one, which I think I kind of like better, you press the button, you go invis, right? Um, so basic CD, right? Basic cooldown. Press the button, you're invis for this amount of time, right? So you don't need to use it all the time, but you can use it as your engage tool. So you could throw your translocator, you could get to your location, you could cloak in, get in there to the location you want to be, and then by that time you probably have your translocator back. So that way you could uncloak at the right times and make your attack, right? But the problem is now we've taken away one of her offensive abilities, which you know uh, is kind of how she was able to sort of like provide value was by like bursting in that way. Um, I think, and here's where hack comes into play. Hack is a weird ability. I don't really like how it is, and there's 2 solutions I have for this one as well. One, it could be a skill shot, and now I can already hear, uh, who's that one other Overwatch YouTuber that has good design ideas? Ralph, I think his name is. He does not like the idea of everything being a skill shot, but hear me out. If you are able to cancel out ultimates, if you are able to lock someone out, uh, of their abilities, you need to have a margin for error, and then not as simple as just, like, interrupting, them by shooting at them, like, it still doesn't quite feel as fair. A lot of times, like, if you're canceling an ultimate, to the people who are really good at knowing when it's gonna happen and how it's gonna happen, like, it's just it doesn't feel good to have yourself locked out of an ultimate by someone using an ability that can't miss, right? So, anything that has a sort of like a high value and the high value enough, like being able to cancel an ultimate, I think you need to have a larger margin for error. There needs to be something where, like, when Ana hits a sleep dart on a nano Genji, you're not sitting there going like, "Oh, that seems unfair." Like, no, that seems pretty fair. Like that was really hard to hit, and she nailed that. And even then, there's still a chance that the sleep doesn't work and somebody wakes them up instantaneously and he goes and clears and wipes your team anyway, right? Like it's a powerful ability that could shut down an ultimate, but it could also not do anything at all. Like that's why I mean, like certain abilities that are super strong need to have that margin of error. So that is one idea. Make it a simple projectile, something like that. Two, and now here's the other one that I think is kind of fun. Hacking doesn't lock you out of your abilities, doesn't cancel abilities anymore. However, it does steal or borrow an ability from whoever you hack, right? And in this case, like say you hack Ana, maybe it steals her nade, maybe it steals her sleep dart. It shouldn't be random, by the way. It should always be the same consistent ability from everyone because people don't like inconsistencies, especially in PvP settings. It's kind of like adding a crit factor. It's not good. Don't do it. So you want to keep things consistent. You just whichever one feels better in the end. That's how you determine which one gets picked, right? But let's say for Ana, it's you steal her sleep dart because everyone gets frustrated by nade and think anti healing is too strong. So you steal your sleep dart, right? Sig, you can steal his rock. Tracer, you can steal her blinks. Cassie, use his nade. Soldier, his heal pad. You see where I'm going with this, right? She takes it and turns it into her own version for herself, and she locks that one in place, right? Now, this does something interesting because of the fact that now it gives her another offensive tool, but it all depends on who she hacks, right? This provides a lot of choice for her. Like now you know what to expect. And it gives her a lot of opportunities to make plays in different ways that she didn't have before, but also ways to play around her, right? So her offensive capabilities now change depending on who she's hacked and who she's loaded in, into her abilities. Um, uh, so this one I really like the idea of personally, but I will say that all of these things that here that like I'm brainstorming are all things that need to be tested out. I'm fully aware that there are technical limitations and also with games are interesting in the fact that you can come up with a lot of interesting ideas but in execution, find that it doesn't play as well as you think. So even if the idea is, sounds good here, please remember that this might not actually work out. But I really like this idea because of the fact that it doesn't lock you out of your abilities, but gives Sombra another tool, and she gets to choose which tool she uses. So while she's in there, she could play up front, play with her team, but, try and find someone to hack. And this one widely wouldn't be a skill shot, be just like normal, but it would borrow an ability. And I wouldn't take away someone's ability. It's not like you would hack a soldier and then he wouldn't have his heal pad. You just hack him and you'd both have heal pad. Um, but then you would also have this sort of interesting dynamic of, okay, do I hack first and try and take the offensive ability and give my location away? Or do I just start to uncloak and try and do damage and then get back out? Or do I go to the front line, hack someone with, try to get a hack off of someone with on my team, and then go invis, go around and try to make a flank, right? Uh, this is where my mind is going in terms of just being like, okay, how can we provide player choice, but also counterplay? Because as long as the abilities that she's borrowing are all, working in game and aren't overpowered, it seems as if, her borrowing a single ability wouldn't be too busted, right? Now, there's definitely some that would benefit more than others, but it also would be very situational, and I think that's a good thing. I think it could be fun um, to see how a Sombra player might interact with an enemy team when she knows that she has this ability to borrow one from somebody else, right? It might even be an option to go in there cloaked, get a hack off on someone, and then just take that ability to put into your chamber and then get away and then prepare for the next engage. And then the enemy team is like, oh crap, like be careful. Sombra's got another sleep dart. That could be an interesting way to play. Right. So this is where my mind is at for Sombra because uh, she does uh, she does need to replace her shift with a basic stealth. This much is for sure. I think that's part of the hero fantasy. I think that as much as stealth characters can be frustrating, um, I think that's important to her, and I think it provides an interesting part of her kit. It does need to have its limits though and be on a cooldown because of the fact that every hero in Overwatch needs to have a weakness, a window of opportunity in which you can capitalize on the mistakes that they've made. And anything at all that can have some sort of infinite uptime but provide value is not fun for counterplay reasons. It's just bad design, especially in terms of like how Overwatch's entire roster works. Right? I've done videos on this before and I've spoken about it, but it's very crucial that that you leave a window of opportunity, and how big that window is versus, how many seconds of or whatnot is entirely determined through balance that you figure out later. But as long as the mechanics work, you can tweak the balance of it later. Um, her hack is also really important, but because all those other abilities I'm talking about, her borrowing, her stealing, like, because there's also a margin for error and it doesn't guarantee free value just by hitting the ability, she still needs to use it again afterwards. I think that could play for a very interesting dynamic. And the translocator and EMP, like I said, those are all fine. So this is what I would personally do with Sombra, as in like to test out. Because like once again, like I said, game development is weird, and sometimes stuff sounds great on paper, and then you try it and you're like, that was ass. But I feel pretty confident in saying that like this could be a pretty fun way to change Sombra around that I also haven't heard somebody else say. Uh, would also make EMP a bit more unique and that make that sort of power transfer to EMP feel better. Um, and just sort of feel fair all around for everything else that she does. So, me personally, what I would like to see uh, is hack be number two and stealth be number two. Those are my favorites. Those personally, like I would like to see. So, if there's any happens to be any Overwatch devs that might wander into this, since Sombra sucks so bad right now, maybe internally give these things a try and just see how it plays out. I don't know. Let me know. But anyway, um, that's my ideas for any Sombra mains in the comments. Please let me know what you think. Any support mains who get frustrated by dealing with Sombra, let me know what you think if this feels like a more fair matchup because I know that she's going to harass you guys the most too. So So yeah, I'm curious to see what other people think, but yeah, let me know in the comments.